Revealing first-hand accounts of Custer's last stand exposes chilling truths that challenge reason. A somber and tragic episode in American history unfolded on June 25th, 1876, near the Little Bighorn River, marking the notorious final stand of General George Custer and his troops. Eyewitnesses to the catastrophic fate of Custer and his men described a day filled with turmoil and confusion, shedding light on the horrific conditions faced by the soldiers, including George Herondine and John Berkman, as they confronted a formidable force of Native American warriors. Their narratives bring to light the grim reality of that ill-fated day, which has been shrouded in myth over the years. These soldiers not only faced the immediate dangers of battle, but also grappled with the escalating uncertainty regarding their leader's fate amid relentless assaults. Despite the proximity of the Little Bighorn River, their intense hunger exacerbated their suffering, forcing them to endure unimaginable hardships. The cacophony of gunfire and war cries intertwined with the distant lamentations of mourning Native American tribes, creating a surreal and disquieting atmosphere throughout the conflict. The harrowing events of that day are recounted through their perspectives, revealing both valor and cowardice in the eerie silence that followed the violent tempest. What truly transpired during Custer's last stand? What decisions led to such a catastrophic defeat? And how did so many men perish? Through the testimonies of those who survived to recount their experiences of that fateful encounter, we uncover the horrific details that defy comprehension in this narrative. To assist us in our endeavor, please like and subscribe to our channel as we delve deeper into this somber tale. Our journey commenced at noon on June 22nd, departing from the Rosebud. We traversed approximately 12 miles along the Rosebud River and established our camp for the night. On June 23rd, we commenced our march at dawn, covering several miles along a trail before setting up camp in the late evening. 6 Crow Scouts, dispatched earlier that day by General Custer, returned with information about new pony tracks leading to a nearby Indian settlement. General Custer convened his officers, although I was unable to overhear their discussion. The scouts were once again sent ahead. We reached an abandoned village site around 4 o'clock and camped there, situated 2 miles below the Rosebud Forks. The scouts were dispatched once more, and by 11 o'clock that night, Custer ordered us to pack up and march up the right fork of the Rosebud. By dawn, the scouts reported having spotted the village. Approximately 3 miles from the point where the scouts had seen the village, we concealed ourselves in a ravine near the creek's headwaters. After surveying the area with his orderlies, General Custer hurried back, claiming to have seen nothing. However, the scouts and a half-breed guide named Nook Buyer insisted that the settlement lay ahead. The scouts informed us that Sioux war parties had located them and were monitoring our troops. Consequently, Custer commanded everyone to prepare for combat. We advanced cautiously, covering nearly 6 kilometers alongside a small brook. 5 miles away, near the entrance of the Little Horn Valley, we encountered a solitary Indian hut containing a deceased individual. Sensing that the Indians were retreating, General Custer ordered a telegram to be sent to Colonel Reno, instructing him to drive the scouts into the dust. Reno moved his soldiers across the plains and led them across the river at a natural ford. After a mile, his troops dismounted and prepared for battle on foot. Native warriors on horseback swiftly charged across the plains as skirmishers from Reno initiated gunfire. However, Reno commanded a retreat to the trees as the Germans advanced to encircle him from the ford. The relentless pursuit and close-range shooting by the Sioux eliminated any chance of a safe escape. Both horses and soldiers fell, while those who remained upright hurried for cover. I urged the 13 soldiers, some of whom were injured, to take shelter in the trees. The wounded wished to flee, but I insisted they stay and fight. My experience told me there was still hope. We remained hidden in the underbrush for hours, hearing the distant sounds of battle, unaware that Custer's command was engaged with the native forces. I instructed the soldiers to move when the gunfire finally diminished, yet some chose to remain still. We crossed the river in small groups and joined Reno's command on the bluffs just as the Indians began to emerge from Custer's conflict. As night descended, Reno's men utilized everything available, including deceased horses, saddles, and bags, to fortify their position. The Indians intensified their assault before dawn, attacking fiercely and even throwing stones at our troops. After regrouping his soldiers, Captain Benteen launched a surprise counterattack that caught the attacking Indians off guard. His courage in remaining in the line of fire that day saved many lives. The soldiers had endured 36 hours without water in the sweltering heat, pleading for it by mid-morning. Despite their thirst and swollen tongues, the conflict showed no signs of abating. The men attempted to eat hardtack and crackers, but their mouths were too dry to moisten them. Some tried chewing, but the food adhered to their lips, rendering it impossible to speak or spit. A group of soldiers volunteered for a perilous mission to reach the river, fully aware that the injured would likely perish due to reports of their imminent dehydration. A valley linked the battlefield to the riverbank, with our position on the bluffs approximately 700 yards away. The soldiers had to traverse an exposed area of about 100 yards to access the ravine, all while evading gunfire from Native Americans positioned on the cliffs. Around 50 men dashed into the valley from the open ground. Upon arrival, they found that Native Americans in the timber across the river were guarding the area. Stealthily, soldiers could approach within 30 feet of the water, but any attempt to reach the bank would provoke gunfire from the Indians. Nevertheless, the soldiers confronted the danger directly. A few rushed to the river, filled their camp kettles, and took cover behind boulders at the bend of the ravine, where they filled canteens and made their way back up the hill. One soldier lost his life, and 6 or 7 others sustained injuries during this endeavor before the men and the wounded were sufficiently supplied. One individual suffered a bullet that shattered his leg bone, leading to a necessary amputation. The Indians began to withdraw at 2 o'clock, although skirmishes continued until late afternoon. By dusk, the Indian forces had vacated the battlefield. Finally, we were able to provide water to the animals, many of which were nearing death, and allow them to graze. That evening, Colonel Reno fortified and relocated to a higher, more secure position. The following day, we anticipated another Indian assault, but by dawn, not a single Indian was visible. The men were confident that reinforcements were en route, and around 10 o'clock, we received news that General Terry was merely 6 miles away, advancing into the valley with a substantial force. We soon observed his troops moving forward. In response to inquiries, Mr. Herondine reiterated his position. Accompanied by the scouts on Reno's left flank, he joined a group consisting of approximately 60 individuals, including 35 Re-Indians, 6 friendly Sioux, 6 Crows, and several white men. He witnessed a Re-Scout raise his arm, likely deceased, brandishing a bloodied knife before collapsing. Given that the 2 cavalry soldiers he had left in the timber were unaccounted for, Herondine presumed they had also perished. While attempting to return to the fort on a soldier's horse, Lieutenant McIntosh was killed, as his horse had been shot early in the engagement. Lieutenant Hodgson, whose horse fell into the river causing him injury, was also seen by Herondine. Hodgson made an effort to escape by gripping a horse's tail, managing to ascend the opposite bank, but was shot by an Indian sharpshooter upon arrival. The Indians were unable to capture any of Custer's supply packs or mules, as they were with the others. Herondine pondered whether the Indians had seized over 100 horses from Custer, given that most of Custer's horses had been killed in the battle. He suspected that some men had endured torture after being captured alive. This suspicion was reinforced by the minor gunshot wounds on Isaiah Dorman, a colored scout, which appeared to have been inflicted while he was still living, leading Herondine to believe the scout had been tortured. Another deceased individual had strips of skin removed. The battlefield was filled with elderly Indians and women who were lamenting loudly. Nevertheless, I am convinced that the dream will persist until I muster the courage to confront reality. One by one, our men fell victim to a sharpshooter stationed on a nearby hill on the 25th and 26th, while the Indians below opened fire upon us. Armed with a buffalo gun, he demonstrated remarkable accuracy. Although he remained hidden from our view, each shot resulted in the death of a man, horse, or mule. He proved to be a more formidable adversary than the fighters below. Ultimately, Captain Ryan utilized a long-range rifle to eliminate him. After the battle, I approached that hill. I observed the sniper positioned behind the boulders he had strategically arranged for cover, still gripping his buffalo gun. As the day progressed and the smoke began to dissipate, most of the Indians retreated to their village to mourn their fallen. This left us isolated on the hill with just the right number of warriors. By that time, we had gone without sustenance since departing camp with Custer earlier in the day. We nibbled on raw bacon and hardtack, which tasted as dry as hay without water. The majority of us were utterly exhausted, with some men collapsing where they stood, too fatigued to contemplate what might transpire next. Regrettably, I was assigned to the night watch and found myself stationed outside Reno's tent. Inside, he was heard drinking heavily from a keg. He had previously remarked to another officer, expressing curiosity about the whereabouts of the Murat of the American Army, and I overheard him snicker derisively as I passed by. Although I was unfamiliar with Murat's identity, I felt insulted by Reno's mockery of Custer. I walked past the men still sleeping on the ground, while those who had not survived lay quietly beside them. The night was becoming eerily silent, akin to a cemetery in the valley, where gunfire, smoke, and chaos had reigned throughout the day. I could hear the mournful cries of the Indians lamenting their dead, accompanied by the distant rhythm of tom-toms. Occasionally I halted my march, hoping to catch a glimpse or sound of Custer and his men stealthily approaching us. My gaze remained fixed on the ridge where we last spotted him, the persistent fear causing my body to ache. However, as the night progressed, nothing transpired, and the air remained still and heavy until morning finally arrived. We awaited whatever might come next, with tension enveloping us like a shroud. It was increasingly difficult for everyone to endure without food and water. While some men sat in silence, deeply engrossed in thought, others murmured incoherently in their sleep. My mind drifted back to Dandy, my horse. I reflected on the moment he was shot and the profound sorrow I experienced. This grief persisted within me, complicating my ability to relinquish the notion that we were fated for disaster and that the worst was yet to come. We recognized the necessity of preparing for whatever challenges awaited us due to the unsettling silence. Through this narrative, I aim to provide you with a clearer insight into the 1876 Great Sioux War and the Battle of Little Bighorn. Please stay tuned for more stories of this nature. I will continue to deliver first-hand accounts from various battlefields. Until next time.